Let's get to our first topic of discuss today. Nigerian telecommunications industry has embarked on a campaign to secure permission from the Nigerian Communications Commission to implement a 100% tariff hike. The proposal is necessary by the industry players to combat the effects of inflation rates and harsh economic conditions, threatening to derail the stability of the sector. Telecom operators justify their case by arguing that their services are fundamental human rights and a key component for economic growth. Let's talk more on this, and today I have Chief Executive Officer of Nine Mobile joining me live from United States of America, Mr. Obafemi Banigbe. Good afternoon, Mr. Banigbe. It's good to have you this afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It's good to be here again. Thank you.
Yes. Let's start our conversation swiftly. Now, you have been in saddle as CEO for a little over 6 months now. And now, what do you think are the most critical challenges facing Nine Mobile right now, and how have you set about addressing them?
Thank you. It's been a privilege to be appointed as a CEO for Nine Mobile in the last 6 months. And then the last 6 months have been quite interesting because the opportunity to turn around the company, reposition the company as a leading player in the market. So for us, it has been a journey of reviewing exactly what the opportunity to review exactly what has been going on in the market. Just to give a little bit of context, Nine Mobile started as a TVC however, over a period of time,
TVC News.
Business basically declined from the point of view of lack of investment. So when we look at the challenges of Nine Mobile, essentially what we have done is to break down our path to recovery into 4 phases. The first phase is the whole stabilization phase, because the business is required to be stabilized from a point of view of network stability, cost control, employee morale, and all of those things that have saddled the business in the last 8 years. And then the second phase really has to do with the whole conversation around modernization of infrastructure. So we're basically investing in modernizing our infrastructure, ensuring that we can compete in the market. And the third phase has to do with the entire transformation journey. That has to do with our approach to revitalizing our product proposition and recapturing our space that we have always known to be as an innovation brand and a brand that appeals to the general populace. So this is the way we are looking at our business. And then in 2025, we intend to basically come out with a bang and then reposition ourselves as a leading player once again.
Now, there have been concerns about the sustainability of Nigeria's telecommunications sector. Means, of course, ongoing economic challenges, prompting calls by several operators to warn that without appropriate tariff adjustments, the industry risks stagnation, network degradation, and potential shutdown. Now, how can your industry navigate this part? It seems challenging.
Well, it is quite challenging. Just to give a little bit of a context, like we all know, the Nigerian telecom industry has been a major contributor to the GDP of Nigeria to the tune of about 14.5%. And then the entire digital economy and the whole overall innovation ecosystem depends on this particular infrastructure. So the impressive growth that the industry has experienced in the last 20 years was mostly driven by increase in service penetration and the adoption of our services, both voice and data, and of course, the digital services that has allowed the business to scale. So this level of growth experienced by the industry did encourage inflow of capital, foreign and local investment that has come into the business, and this investment were channeled into expanding coverage into underserved areas, improving capacity, and eventually investing in broadband data infrastructure. However, the recent macroeconomic challenges facing the nation, fueled by inflation and currency devaluation, has been a major challenge that is facing the industry. As you can imagine, both our cost of capital for capex and operational expenditure has skyrocketed because they are mostly denominated in foreign currency, and if they are not denominated in foreign currency, they are mostly indexed against foreign currency. So even though the industry is growing in top-line revenues, the rate of growth in top-line revenues is not commensurate to the rate of growth in our cost structure. So if some of our cost line has gone up from 100% to 300%, and the industry has had to sort of grapple with this. So when we speak about industry sustainability, what we are saying in the real sense is that every business must be in a position to generate enough revenues to cover its cost. Otherwise, it will have to resort to borrowing either from shareholders or from the capital market. In the last 2 years, the telecom sector had to do that, and this is not sustainable because at some point you will have to be able to pay back those borrowing that you've done, and it requires you to be able to generate the cash flow to be able to address that. So what we are saying for us is we need to be able to balance the whole concept of sustainability of the industry in the long run and the affordability conversation that is ongoing in the market. So there's really no easy way around that. As an industry leader, we do appreciate the challenges in the economy. We know that people are going through tough times. The government also appreciates that as well. Of course, you can see that in some of the conversations from the president. So we understand that the telecom services have become more essential services to daily life of people. So in our clamor for the sustainability of the industry, we are also balancing that with the affordability conversation, because there's no point putting a product in the market that people cannot pay for. So this has been the conundrum we found ourselves. How do we keep industry sustainable while offering affordable services to the end user? And I guess we've come to a point whereby we're saying a do nothing is no longer a strategy. We have to now get to a point whereby we do something right now to ensure our possibility to continue to operate as a going concern. So this is really not about expanding profit, but it is about securing the industry's future and our ability to continue to power Nigeria's economy. So our goal, what we're seeking for, is a market-reflective pricing regime that is essential to sustaining our operation, improving service quality, and attracting further investment into the sector. So this is our plea.
Now there seems to be a significant push back against this idea of tariff hike by telcos, including economic burden, which we've identified recently. Some say is insensitive and not in the interest of consumers. What response would you and your colleagues be planning to make to, or what in this how will it be beneficial to Nigerians, yes, the end users, if of course you get this approval by NEC? And what is the appropriate percentage? 100%, some say 40 is fair enough, 50 is fair enough. So that's like a 2-in-1 question.
Oh, okay. So the reality is this, that we do understand the challenges in the economy. And we live in the real world. We live in Nigeria. We understand the pressures that people are going through. So this is not to just make an arbitrary decision and say because my cost has increased 300%, then I must transfer all the full cost to the end user. So for us, it is really a question of balancing sustainability question with affordability question. Now, if we are not in a position to keep sustaining our business, being able to invest, every time you don't invest in critical infrastructure, like you will have seen in our own case as Nine Mobile, the service quality will degrade. And when service quality degrades, the consumer effectively, you may end up with a cheap service or an affordable service in the code, which is not available. So if your service is not available because of quality issues, because you lack coverage, because you cannot invest in new technology, because you cannot upgrade obsolete equipment, essentially what would then happen in the long run is that service quality is going to degrade in the long run. And then aside from service quality degrading, there's also going to be an impact in the inflow of investment into the sector. I mean, we are all business people. Anybody that puts money in a business is expecting a return. Any investor that puts money in a business is expecting that you must be able to at least pay back that capital. Now, you pay back the capital for investment from the cash flows that is generated from the business. Now, if your business is in a negative cash flow situation because its cost has risen much more than its revenue, it means that you are not in a position to pay back those investments. And when you don't pay back an investment, it means that you will not be in a position to attract further investment into the sector. So it's a double whammy. And this is why we must ensure that we can secure a market-reflective tariff that covers our cost and also gives us the opportunity to generate cash flow to be able to keep attracting investment to the sector. Otherwise, if foreign investment or local investment stops going into the sector, there's so many implications to the That means our contribution to GDP is going to reduce. I've listened to the president in one of the conversations where we're talking about making Nigeria's economy to be a $1 trillion economy. Now, a $1 trillion economy will require an investment in broadband infrastructure that can power that. So imagine if telecom is contributing 14% to the GDP of Nigeria, and if, at the current GDP level that we are in. So if we get to a $1 trillion economy and we still are able to maintain the overall contribution to GDP in the range of 14%, that is an overall value created, which eventually improves quality of life, helps us to advance to become a digital-led economy, improves the overall service quality of experience for the end user. And for every 1% percentage increase in internet or digital penetration, there is always a multiplier on the GDP. So I think that for us, what we're saying to the public is that our services are essential, but our survival is also quite essential to the overall goal of ensuring that Nigeria becomes a $1 trillion GDP in the next couple of years.
Meanwhile, some are also argue that there are many other avenues through which operators like you can make some more money, of course, and raise operational costs without putting this burden on Nigerians. That's on one part. But aside these stony issues of tariff hikes, what are the other bottlenecks, of course, that you face in the part of you, or you as operators, and how can they be surmounted if Nigeria is to experience the next growth phase in the telecommunications industry?
First, I want to say that I would like to assure the public that the industry is constantly reinventing itself and exploring various opportunities to improve cost efficiencies. If not for this, then it would have been impossible for the industry to operate under the current tariff regime, which has stayed the same for many, many years, despite inflationary pressure. So it means that the industry has done something right, at least in making sure that we absorb this cost over the last 7 to 10 years where the tariff has remained the same. So what we're saying now is that we have kind of run out of steam from all the cost absorption that we can do, cost efficiencies initiative that we are currently adopting. So we now needed to sort of adjust our tariff to be market reflective. And we also, aside from the tariff conversation, I know everybody is talking about how else can you improve cost efficiencies. We are also going to be taking advantage of the regulators, our esteemed regulators' guideline as it relates to bringing efficiencies to our operation. One, by avoiding duplication of infrastructure where we can, and we're taking advantage of the policies that NCC has put in place over the last couple of years, and which is relating to infrastructure sharing, relating to spectrum sharing, relating to infrastructure sharing arrangements that the regulator has put in place that we're going to take advantage of. But we must also commend the government as being very collaborative in addressing some of the challenges that we face. Like you were talking about the challenges that we face as an industry. A couple of the challenges that we face in the industry, we've actually received a lot of help from the government. One has to do with the challenge of vandalization of our infrastructure. You would not imagine what it takes to run a telecom business in Nigeria. We constantly facing things around fiber cords, infrastructure vandalization, and recently the government has put in place a critical infrastructure protection bill, which is aimed to help some of our infrastructure safeguard the sanctity of our infrastructure to ensure that people do not just vandalize it, and then that will help us in a way. The resolution of the old right-of-way challenges with state government is also helping in addressing some of the challenges that we face. The addressing the issue of multiple taxation on the telcos is also an area which we commend the government efforts for, and we believe that we're going to start to see those results as we go along in the course of 2025. And we must also commend the government for helping us to address the issue of these old telco bank debt issue, which has been lingering for a while. The recent collaboration between the CBN and the NCC has helped us to sort of address that as well. And then two other things I want to talk about is the government commitment in investing in critical infrastructure. Recently, the Honorable Minister of Communication announced a project to lay 90,000 kilometers of fiber across the country. So that becomes a critical infrastructure that reduces the need for the operators to go and duplicate the same infrastructure, which is an enabling environment that government is putting in place. Last but not the least is really the NCC guideline for us, which as NIMOBA we're going to take advantage of, and has to do with the old guideline on infrastructure sharing, making sure that we can reduce the cost of deployment of infrastructure, and making sure that we do not duplicate infrastructure. And that means that we can then do much more with the capital that we are going to attract into the business. And that is why we believe that the future is still bright for the telecom industry, despite the challenges that we face in the sector today.
Yes, I was going to ask you of the future of the industry, but you have experience in working in diverse markets and, of course, spearheading collaboration among players. Now, is this something you're willing to champion in Nigeria, considering the myriads of issues confronting the industry? And, of course, we'll wrap up finally with your outlook. What's the future of the telecommunications industry in Nigeria?
Well, from my experience, I mean, I haven't worked in different markets. I mean, I've worked in East Africa market, in Tanzania. I've worked in Ghana, and of course, after leaving a bit of my corporate executive practice, I went into consulting practice, and that consulting practice meant that we've done a couple of projects across the continent. See, the industry is evolving, and as new technologies evolve, the cost of deploying new technologies are actually skyrocketing as well, because globally there is a pressure on the resources and inflow. And the telecom sector is one of the sectors that has generated least return globally in terms of total shareholder return compared to other sectors globally. Now, so it means that as we compete for the same pool of investment that is available, we have to then show that we are a better manager of those resources, and we can give a better return. So to do that, it means that we must reinvent our business model, and then we must take advantage of competition, not only based on infrastructure, but competition based on service. So it means that in some places, we must actually pull resources together to co-build infrastructure. And in some cases, we will do it ourselves. So we have to always, for NiMobile, for example, we have adopted a mantra, which is we build infrastructure where we must, and then we share infrastructure where we can. So in that way, we don't just go forward to deploy costs that can be avoided because somebody else has already done that investment. Then why don't you access that investment based on the economically viable agreement that both of you have structured among yourself? So for me, it is really about making sure that we take advantage of what has been done. We compete based on service and not reinvent the wheel. And for example, if you're laying fiber, 70% of the cost of laying fiber is actually the cost of trenching, digging the ground, and then putting trenches and putting trunks in the ground. Now, if four of us have to do that nationwide, it means that we're going to incur 70% of cost that could have been shared. Now, we achieved this in Tanzania, for example. When I was in Tanzania, it took us about 2 years to negotiate an operator-led fiber consortium that allowed us to jointly build fiber infrastructure so that we could reduce our overall cost of capital. Now, it was because of the fact that the government of the day is sort of asking us to do that. Now, in the Nigerian environment, we must now begin to look at other cost efficiencies in which we can bring to the table to grow the overall industry. And for NiMobile, we are very committed to this whole agenda of ensuring that industry remains sustainable. So in respect to the future of the Nigerian telecom sector, we think that the future is quite bright. Nigeria currently has a size of about 220 million odd people, and we expect that over the next 20 to 25 years, the market is going to grow to almost 400 million people. Some people will say 500 million people. Now, that puts us as the third largest, most populous country in the world. Now, 70% of our population is below 30 years of age. So that effectively means that we then have a very huge market that is digitally savvy, that we can take advantage of. So for us, we think that there is a massive market opportunity in order to be able to serve the needs of the digital natives that we're going to sort of have as a population of people who have who have their life that has been now dependent on smartphone or social media or digital services. Unlike those of us when we were growing up, we didn't even have a mobile phone, not to talk of having a smartphone. So we think that we have a population of young, digitally savvy people that we must serve. We see massive opportunity in broadband data, both in fixed and mobile, and the adoption of digital services. So for us as NiMobile, our goal is to reposition our business to take advantage of the massive opportunities in the market. We are very, very fortunate to have committed shareholders who are willing and then to back us in our quest to reposition ourselves in the market. And then we believe that our customers also deserve what I call the quality of service that they have been accustomed to in the early days of this business. So for us, the future is bright. And yes, we have these current economic headwinds, but like we all know that every challenge has an end time, and then there is no challenge that remains forever. And then because of the collaboration of the government and the private sector, we believe Nigeria can pull through this phase and reposition ourselves as a global leader in the digital sector, and the telecommunication will play a very strong part in that.
Mr. Obafemi Banigbe, Chief Executive Officer, Nine Mobile, thank you so much for your time on the program. I hope to see you soon to talk again as issues pop up in the telecommunications industry, of course, around the tech world. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
All right, then. Still to come on the show, we'll be spending the next half hour to